because of the effort of Srila Prabhupada, who came here to the shores of our great United States of America at age 69 in 1965 with $7 in his pocket. But that's not all he came with. He came with 203 volume sets of Srimad Bhagavatam. 200 sets. And he was determined that he would not come to America empty-handed, but he would have this transcendental literature of the Bhagavatam, which he had translated and written the purports and single-handedly published at his own expense, gathering a few donations here and there in India. It's a miraculous story. And so he got passage on a cargo ship from the Scindia Steamship Company, the owner of which was a lady named Sumati Morarji. And she had taken over the business from her father and her husband. And she was a very extremely wealthy and accomplished business lady, but also a very pious, a Gujarati lady. So Srila Prabhupada had tried to approach her, but he couldn't get an interview with her. So finally, he just sat on the steps of the Scindia building in Bombay and waited for her. And various secretaries had turned him down, and this old Swami, trying to see the boss lady, it's not going to happen. And then, so he waited outside. When she came out of the building, he was there waiting on the steps. And he proposed that she give him a passage on one of her ships. And at first she refused. He said, Swamiji, you are 69 years old. You're not in the best of health. What will you do in America? If you go there, you will simply die. And that is not very glorious. And anyway, you're living in Vrindavan, the holy place of Lord Krishna's appearance 5,000 years ago. And most of these sadhus, these saintly persons there in Vrindavan, they take a vow to never leave Vrindavan. They don't want to be anywhere else. And when they leave their body, they want to pass away in Vrindavan. And those who pass away in that holy place, they go back to the spiritual world. Such a sacred, auspicious place. But while Srila Prabhupada was living in Vrindavan, he was a most unusual sadhu compared to most of the sadhus, because he was typing the manuscripts of Srimad Bhagavatam and then going to Delhi, which is, what's the distance? 90 miles? Back and forth, riding the train and trying to arrange for paper and printing and supervising the proofreading and the galley proofs. He had no editor. He was doing this all by himself in English, which was not his first language. So great determination he showed. And then finally he persuaded Sumati Morarji to give him passage on one of her ships, which was not a luxury liner with a swimming pool on the deck. Rather, it was just a bare cabin. And sometimes he was cooking khichdi, and he spoke to the crew. He spent Janmashtami on board the ship, the holy day of Lord Krishna's appearance. And he also had a couple of heart attacks on that voyage. And there was no doctor on board, and no one was taking care of him. But he managed to survive those heart attacks. Later, he told his good friend Bhagatji in Vrindavan, who when Srila Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna temple, the ISKCON temple in Vrindavan, Bhagatji was a great help to him, and Bhagatji was a wealthy man, a lot of resources. And he was Srila Prabhupada's constant companion. And Srila Prabhupada confided in him that while he lay there in his cabin, suffering 2 heart attacks in just a very short time, a couple of days period, that Lord Krishna came to him, first of all in a vision. He came to him in a form of his many incarnations, rowing a boat, as if to say, I am guiding this ship. And then Prabhupada told Bhagatji in the 1970s that actually Krishna came and massaged his heart to save him from what he felt would have been a certain death. And he never told anyone else this. And he swore Bhagatji to secrecy. But Bhagatji waited several decades after Srila Prabhupada had left this world in 1977, and he revealed this secret to the devotees. And Bhagatji was a very reliable Vaishnava, not one to make up stories like that. So when Srila Prabhupada, first he came to Boston Harbor, and he wrote some prayers while staying on the Dhirodatta, which is the name of the boat he came on. And it was not like a big container ship or something. It's just kind of an old funky boat. You see pictures. And he wrote these prayers to Lord Krishna that when he got to Boston, that was his first port of arrival. And he got off with the captain and his wife, Captain Pandya and Mrs. Pandya. And he walked around and saw for the first time America. And then he wrote this poem, this song that, these people here, they are so absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. It's just a great shock for a sadhu coming from the holy land of Vrindavan, where there are 5,000 temples. Every morning the bells are ringing. Everyone is up very early, chanting mantras, offering artik to the deities, cooking, making offerings to the deities. The whole town is absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And to see, the tough guys on the streets of Boston and the merchant marines and the shopkeepers, and he was like, these people are so covered by the modes of nature, by passion and ignorance, and they appear to think themselves very happy. And so he's praying to Krishna in this song, how will I be able to penetrate their hearts and deliver your message, the message of Lord Krishna, to these people? And then he prayed, Krishna, only you can make my power of speaking suitable so that they can understand this message of Krishna consciousness and thus become happy. So, this is the real thing. He's hopelessly writing in supplication to the Lord to allow him to preach. His spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, had sent him. He came on the order of his guru to preach in the Western world. No money, no contacts, just some books. And how would these people even understand this message of Krishna consciousness? It's just, the culture is just so antithetical to spiritual life, the material culture, which we take for granted, those of us who are familiar and comfortable inhabitants of the Western world. We just take it for granted. We're so used to associating with the modes of nature and being absorbed in Maya and carelessly running about, absorbed in the bodily concept of life and trying to satisfy the senses. But Prabhupada did begin preaching in New York City. He was actually the first place he had of his own. Well, he had a windowless office in an office building that he started out in, and hardly anyone came there. Then he, through an acquaintance, was able to get the use of a loft in the Bowery, which is like a really bad neighborhood. The Bowery is really bad. It's a place of alcoholics littering the street, a lot of homeless, and very tough place, very unclean place. And there was an artist loft up on the top floor of this one building, a former factory building. So Prabhupada shared that loft with one young boy who was kind of flipping out on LSD at the time. And he began preaching this message of Krishna consciousness based on the Bhagavad Gita. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, which he spoke the Bhagavad Gita 5,000 years ago when he appeared on earth for the benefit of human society, Krishna very elaborately lays out the Vedic philosophy and the understanding that actually we are not these material bodies, but we are pure spiritual entities who've lost our way and become entangled in this material energy, which is also known as the kingdom of Maya. And so much so have we become entangled in the perplexities of Maya that we suffer life after life after life, going from one body to another, and not by choice, but being forced to take birth, and not always in a human body either. All the living beings you see in this world are spirit souls, just like you and I. The difference is that we happen to have this human form of body, which is the great gift of the material nature for the living entity, because it's only in the human form of life that we can understand who we really are and what our real purpose of life is, if we are fortunate enough to come in contact with the devotees of Krishna and this Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, thanks. And most people generally speaking in the world, of all the 8 billion people in the world, are not taking advantage of the facility that this human form of life gives us, the spirit soul, the opportunity to make spiritual advancement. So the world is very much a lost world. That's the kingdom of Maya. And this symptomatic existential experience of the spirit souls under the clutches of Maya is one of repeated birth and death, and then in between birth and death, suffering in various ways, trying to become happy, because that is our real intrinsic nature as spirit souls. We want to be happy. In Vedic language, that's called Anandamaya Vyasat. Everyone is looking for happiness. But we're looking in the wrong place. We've accepted the wrong process for achieving happiness. We are thinking that to enjoy this body through the senses, to try to fulfill all my different various material desires for profit, adoration, distinction, a good life, all kinds of facility, comfort, security, safety, satisfaction of mind, all these things we would like to achieve through our endeavors are actually out of our grasp. We're not able to achieve those things by material methods. Even though we're convinced that those methods are going to bring us the desired result. We think that's called illusion. So the knowledge that Krishna gives us in Bhagavad Gita dispels that illusion, cuts through that illusion. That is the nature of transcendental knowledge. In the beginning of transcendental knowledge, Krishna explains in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, is that we are not these mortal, perishable bodies, but we are the eternal soul. And the soul, you cannot kill. You can kill the body, but you cannot slay the soul with any weapon or you can't burn him with fire, you can't wipe him out with water. All these things that the perishable body is subject to. The soul is immortal, eternal, deathless. For the soul, there is never birth nor death. And because he is existing eternally. Now that's pretty amazing information right there. That's a good beginning. And then Krishna explains how that we, the soul, can awaken our original identity. Which is explained by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 540 years ago. He's Krishna himself, but he's appearing as if he were a devotee. And he's teaching it, I have thanks. He's teaching us the process of devotional service. One of his great devotees, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, has written, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, Siksharshameka Purusha Purana, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari, Kripambudhiryas Tamaham Prapadye. I surrender to that Lord Chaitanya, who is none other than Krishna himself, even though he has accepted this body, this form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in order to teach us Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga, the ancient science of Bhakti Yoga, of Krishna consciousness, which involves, I was fine until I started talking, which involves renunciation, Vairagya, Vidya, and knowledge. So those who want to advance on the spiritual path, they learn this science of Bhakti Yoga, which does involve stepping back from the ordinary life of the pleasures of the body and cultivating the internal life. And that is available to everyone. Srila Prabhupada has taught us that there is not a single man, woman, or child on this earth who is ineligible to take to Krishna consciousness because of the circumstance of their birth, the family they appear in, the country, the society, the nation. Everyone, every human being is eligible to take to this science of Krishna. As a matter of fact, Lord Chaitanya in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, one of his principal followers in the 15th century, in the 16th century, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, Sajju Kabunai, Shravanade Shudi Chitte, Karuye Udai, that this Krishna Prema, this love of God, this pursuit of connection to the Supreme Lord Krishna, is actually eternally situated within the heart of everyone. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Sajju Kabunai, Shravanade Shure Chitte, Karuye Udai. And it is awakened by the process of Shravanadi Shure Chitte, purifying the consciousness by hearing about Krishna, like hearing through Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and chanting the holy names of Krishna, which is the authorized scientific process for awakening the Krishna consciousness of the living entity. So that Krishna consciousness is dormant within everyone's heart. It's already there, but it needs to be awakened through the process of chanting the holy names. Therefore, we're known as the Hare Krishna movement because we do what? We chant Hare Krishna. Just exactly according to the yogic process of mantra meditation that's given to us by Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself, but he is more magnanimous, more merciful, more compassionate than any other incarnation or appearance of the Lord. Lord Krishna was a little bit demanding. In the end of Bhagavad Gita, at the conclusion, he says that, okay, now you just surrender to me. Give up whatever concepts of religion you have, whatever you think your duties are in this world, and surrender to me. And he says, I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Do not worry. But that's a big ask. Okay, now just surrender to what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita. So our natural reaction is like, slow down, take it easy. You know, don't ask me to surrender and give up all my attachments, all my desires, all my pursuits in this world. I can't do that. Like there's a Srila Prabhupada preaching in England in the 1930s. One Lord Zetland, the Marquis de Zetland, asked him, these are sannyasi disciples, oh, Swamiji, your preaching is very wonderful. I'm very inspired, but I have a doubt. Can you make me into a Brahmana? He said, oh, yes. You can become a Brahmana. You can become very advanced. Oh, really? How do I do that? He says, well, the first thing is you have to follow these 4 principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Now, this is an English lord he's speaking to. Do you know the lifestyles of the rich and famous of the English lords and their carryings on in their society? And Lord Zetland burst out, impossible. I could never follow these principles. I mean, those 4 things, that is my very life, all 4 of those. I used to live in Philadelphia, in our temple there, and we would preach in Atlantic City, which was a very famous or infamous kind of place. You know, the casinos, the mafia, the corruption, and we used to say that if you get out of the car and you go on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, within 5 minutes, you have the opportunity to break all of the regular principles that we just mentioned, because those things are the very heartbeat, the life and soul of such a place as Atlantic City, like Las Vegas also. And that is the business. That is the attraction. Everyone wants to go. I want to enjoy all those things that I can't get in my small town necessarily somewhere, because too many, stern, moralistic Christian people are watching. Can't get away with it. But in Las Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? So we used to joke about the conditions there. But that's going on everywhere in the world. And everyone is madly pursuing this false sense of happiness and and complete and utter neglect of the real business of life, which is to become enlightened. The real happiness, Bhagavad Gita explains, is not available through external sensual or sensory stimulation. The real happiness is something that only you can find within. And Krishna consciousness and this chanting opens up the door wide open by which we can traverse that path. That's explained in the language of the Bhagavatam. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahurvi Muktes. The door to liberation is flung wide open for those who engage in the service of the Lord and his devotees. On the other hand, Tamo Dwaram Joshi Tashangi Sangam. By associating with those who are non-devotees, then Tamo Dwaram, the path to hell, that is flung wide open too. So you can choose. Everyone has a free choice. And those who are intelligent, it's explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, will take to this chanting of Hare Krishna, Yajantihi Sumedha Saha. That those who have not only Medha intelligence, but Sumedha Saha, extraordinary intelligence, will take to this path of chanting the holy names and make their lives perfect. And they also taste a happiness within that is unequaled to any kind of material happiness that even the richest person in this world can have at their fingertips. Actually, it's kind of a well-known thing that generally the richer people are, and then the more access they have to sense gratification, then the more miserable they become. Because all their money and all the facilities they have, which ordinary people can't get, it doesn't satisfy the soul. They try to satisfy the body, but there's no happiness to be had there. And therefore they become even more miserable than just ordinary working people, just ordinary middle class people who are also suffering. So the only solution to the problems of life is to learn this great science of Bhakti Yoga, which Krishna explains so beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that Yoginam api sarvesham madvatenataratmana shadavan bhajate jo mam same yutatamo mataha. He says of all the different kinds of yogis, Yoginam api sarvesham, that those who worship me with great faith, Shraddhavan. And this faith is not like blind faith. Remember there was a super group, Blind Faith, with Eric Clapton and Stevie Winwood back in the 60s. And actually one of the songs on that album that Eric Clapton wrote was, I have found a way to live in the presence of the Lord. I have found a way to give like I never gave before. So they were spiritual seekers, sort of, at least in their own way. Actually, when there was the concert for George, the memorial concert for George Harrison, and they had all the big stars up there doing their little bits. And so Eric Clapton was sitting on the stage with his acoustic guitar, and he was, waiting for his solo on the acoustic guitar to come up. And while he was waiting, they had an Indian choir was chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then you could see clearly in the video that Eric was chanting the holy names along with the choir. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have a microphone. That was not his contribution, but he was chanting the holy name along. And then later, Gibson Guitar Corporation issued a commemorative reissue of Eric Clapton's 335 guitar, complete with the Hare Krishna sticker on the headstock that was given to him by his good friend George Harrison, who was associating with the devotees in London. at that time in 1969. So the Crossroads 335 guitar, which was a limited edition, they all have the Hare Krishna stick. Where they were able to figure out how to make that, they must have had somebody, analyze it and scan it and digitize it, and they printed them up and they put them on all those guitars. So all those guitars, which are collector's items, they all say Hare Krishna on that. And Eric was chanting Hare Krishna. So sorry about my less than ideal condition here today, but when it's my turn to give the lecture, it always seems like something's happening like that. So we'll stop here. Any questions, comments, realizations? All right, thank you all for coming. Yes.
Sorry, I have a question. So this process you explained, controlling the senses, how does it happen? Is it something that some people can just change from one day to the next?
It's a gradual process. And one devotee I know, he said, developing your Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, but that doesn't mean that you gradually take to the process. No, you take to the process and you follow it, and then you gradually make progress. Not that I will gradually take a little Krishna consciousness. No, you learn the science and you begin to practice it, and then gradually you make advancement. But if you try to only take a little Krishna consciousness and then meanwhile continue on with the other things that are prohibited, it's compared to trying to start a fire by pouring water on the fire. You'll never get much of a flame. Maybe a little smolder, maybe a little smoke, but you'll pour it out with the water. So, but it's possible for anyone. And everyone who's taken to Krishna consciousness and pursued it is able to do it. So that means anyone can do it. If I can do it, and you should have seen me when I was a teenager. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I guarantee you. It's a practical fact. But you have to try. And you have to make some endeavor. Seriously. A diamond is a very valuable thing, but not everyone can afford to pay the price of the diamond. And so Krishna consciousness is also a very valuable thing, but not everyone is willing to pay the price to achieve it. And that price is one's sincerity to practice Krishna consciousness. That's the enthusiasm, patience, confidence, and sincerity. All right, so we have to stop now. Time for the Artik. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.